Welcome to the Practice Management Study Club. Tonight's topic is what you need to know about working with insurance companies, being presented by Sandy Balarjan. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Joanne Friedman, Territory Sales Manager for Canada.
Thanks, Jessica. It's my pleasure to introduce Sandy Balarjan. Sandy is a leading authority on how to increase the effectiveness of dental business systems. Sandy is the author of 3 textbooks, Dental Office Administration, first and second edition, published by Top Hat Publishers, and the Canadian Dental Office Administrator, published by Nelson Canada. She created the first certificate course in dental practice management at the University of Toronto, Faculty of Dentistry. Sandy has lectured at dental faculties across North America and has had articles published in many journals, including the Journal of the Canadian Dental Association, Oral Health, Spectrum Teamwork, Just for Canadian Dentists, and many other publications. As owner-operator of Dental Office Consulting Services, Sandy specializes in dental practice management, consulting, hiring, coaching, and training dental teams, implementation of in-office programs, dental business, and operational plans. Take it away, Sandy.
Great. Thank you so much, Joanne. And thank you again to NDX for this kind invitation. So tonight we're going to talk about dealing with dental insurance companies. So what you're going to learn in tonight's webinar is the true cost of dental benefits and who's actually paying for them, how to work with insurance companies in order to be your patient's advocate, and also how to respond to difficult insurance questions with some great answers. So beginning with, So to begin with, insurance companies are financial institutions. So having said that, they don't care about your patient's dental health. And that's what patients may or may not understand. So as financial institutions, they are built on profit. And no person or organization goes into business intentionally to lose money. So insurance companies never lose money. Even with devastating losses, there's always money in, it's called a reserve fund for large catastrophic events. So insurance companies are the strongest financial institutions in the world. And as I say, they never lose money. So the objective, of course, is to keep the cost of the premiums high to the employer. So they charge the employers as high a premium as possible, and to keep the utilization rate low. Now that term, what I mean by utilization rate is how many of the participants or subscribers to the insurance plan actually use the plan. And the insurance companies actually have underwriters that work with psychologists. So they study psychology on how patients think. And they set the premiums. There's a very long, complicated underwriting formula, but they set the premiums based on this underwriting formula, which I won't get into because that in itself would take an entire evening. But our objective, of course, is to help the patients receive the benefits that they've paid for, because the patients, even if the employer is paying for their benefits, so one way or the other, the patient or the subscriber to the insurance is paying for it. So it's either taken off of their paycheck or included in as part of their salary. So it's not a free, they don't get free dental from their employer. There are only 2 exceptions to that rule, and I was corrected when I was doing a seminar actually in Ottawa, and that's the Canadian federal government will pay 100% of major restorative, and I think the RCMP as well, but I think they've even changed their benefits as well. So the idea for tonight is to help your patients receive the benefits that they're not only entitled to, but they've already paid for. They've paid for these benefits. So it's our job as dental practitioners to help them get the most out of their benefits that they've paid for. So how the insurance companies set the premiums is if the claims experience is low, so in other words, at the end of the benefit year, the premium, in other words, the amount that the employer has paid in excess stays back with the insurance company. So the insurance company just keeps it. So that's their profit margin. The surplus is retained at the insurance company. It's not returned to the policyholder. So if you had a group of individuals, they're all based on group plans. If you had a group of individuals and they didn't use the plan, then the excess isn't returned back to the employer. So the insurance companies keep it. It's the intention of insurance companies to keep their claims experience low, otherwise there's less profit. So that's really the bottom line. So insurance companies don't care about your patient, they care about money, and they care about premiums, setting the premiums according to the risk of the patient actually using their dental benefits. So in the contract, what they'll do is they'll set limitations and eligibility requirements for treatment. So in a basic plan, in other words, there's not usually any major restorative. So that would include no crowns, no bridges, implants, etc. And why? Because these are the most costly services to perform, and they dramatically will increase the claims experience, so thereby increasing the cost to the employer. With major restorative, with the exception of the Canadian federal government, there is always copayment involved. Now, this is due to a shared risk formula. It's a little bit like gambling, more or less. So if they have a group of workers, say for example, a group of white collar workers versus a group of blue collar workers, then the group of white collar workers would probably have the more expensive benefit plan, because there's an assumption, and this is where they work with the psychologists, there's an assumption that white collar workers will have higher dental IQ, so therefore they will likely use their plans. So theirs will cost a lot more. Whereas blue collar workers, there's an assumption, once again, and these are all based on statistics, so it's not just a gut reaction. Like I said, it's a very complicated formula. So there's then they assume that that the blue collar workers are less likely to use their plans. So they'll actually get a little bit higher benefit level, but the cost of the premiums will be reduced. So that's basically how they set the plans. So statistics are gathered and applied to a group. So it's all under group benefits packages. And by the way, you should know, with group packages, dental is the most expensive. So they include dental with, physiotherapy, things like that in their benefits package. But dental is the most expensive, and it's usually the first one during times of economic stress that are dropped. So they drop the dental ones because they're generally utilized and they're the most costly to continue with. And then they factor in contingencies. So for example, co-payments for major restorative services, they may put in a predetermination process, and there's a specific reason for that, which we're going to be talking about in just a moment as well. But this helps the insurance company to share the risk. Now, what I'm talking about with risk is the financial risk. So the risk of financial loss, and that's how they set their premiums to the employer. And then an administration fee is factored in as well. So, and then the premium is set for the employee, employer. I will tell you, part of my 38 years in dentistry is I did work in dental insurance for a couple of years, and I worked for 4 major insurance companies that were all combined into one. This was some time ago. But so the information I'm giving you is from firsthand knowledge and experience of working directly with dental insurance and with insurance adjudicators as well. So when they're setting the plan design, they will also build in a predetermination process. And why do you need a predetermination process if you know that the treatment is covered under the plan? The simple answer is to slow down the claim. Now, as you know, when you send in a predetermination, even though we're in the age of instant messaging, it usually takes anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks for the reply to come back to, and it usually goes back to the patient, not necessarily to the dental office. But when the reply comes back to the patient, it will say things like, this is not covered, this is not approved under your plan. So when the patient sees that, they think that the actual treatment wasn't approved. So there's the psychological little trick there, because they make the patient think, well, if this isn't approved by my insurance company, then it's not the right treatment for me. So then they go back to the dentist and ask why you recommended something or you prescribed care that's not covered by my insurance company. And there's a real risk to that for the patient's health. If you are treating according to the dental plan and not treating anything that is not covered under the dental plan, then you could be not doing the patient a favor because of the fact they could have an existing condition in their mouth that's being left untreated. So there's no other reason for the predetermination process except for that the patient will hopefully not follow through with the treatment recommendations. Now that's why an insurance company will withhold that approval for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. And it's usually more like 4 weeks. The specific reason behind that is because most dental conditions are asymptomatic. So the patient's not feeling any pain, and the psychologists that are working with the underwriters, they know that consumers will prioritize their purchases. So if the person, especially this time of year with the holidays coming up quickly, a lot of people they're being stretched thin as far as financial concerns go, and the fact is that if they have to wait on their approval from their insurance company to see how much they will assist them with, then the chances are that the patient will prioritize their purchases and put their money elsewhere. So in other words, they won't follow through with the treatment because, you know, the urgent need right now is you know, the holidays or whatever the urgent need is, or the transmission in the car blew out, you know, something could have happened. So that's what the insurance companies depend on, and they hope for it. So they hope that the patient will forget about it, because then that's one less claim that they have to pay out for major restorative services. So it's very important that the staff at the office follow up with predeterminations and follows up with the patient. And I usually recommend to call the patient at the 2-week mark. And I tell the receptionists or the treatment coordinators to condition the patient. So when you send out the predetermination, they have a little sentence that they need to memorize, and that is included in your handout tonight as well. And basically it says, if you give me your permission, I will send out a pre-estimate on your behalf to see how much your insurance company might assist you with. So that sentence has been designed to help the patient understand that the benefits are your benefits, and that I need your permission, because this is your benefit. You're the subscriber to the insurance, to submit a pre-estimate on your behalf. I don't say predetermination, I say pre-estimate, but you all know what we're talking about. And we'll send it out on your behalf to see what your insurance might assist you with. So the word might is because they might not assist you with it, and assistance instead of coverage. If you say the word coverage, patients often think that it's 100% covered. And if it's not, if they have to pay anything out of pocket, well, why, if it was 100% covered? So we're going to cover some of those difficult questions as well a little bit later on. So the approval usually takes 2 to 4 weeks, and it usually goes to the patient. There was one predetermination that I saw come back, and the patient brought it in, and it said, your dentist is overcharging in large letters. And then beneath that, it said, over and above what your plan design is. So whatever your policy is, that actually is covered. But you notice that they put the block letters in your dentist is overcharging, and that patient brought it in. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. Brought it in to show it to the doctor and said, you know what, you're overcharging and my insurance company is proving it. Excuse me. So that's the type of tactics that they use in order to slow down the claims process and not have to pay out the claims. They're okay at accepting the premiums, but not necessarily paying out the claims. So the reason for the delay is that psychologists who work with the underwriters know that consumers prioritize their purchases, And if a patient is asymptomatic and has to wait for 4 weeks for a response from the insurance company, the patient's less likely to follow through with the treatment because they think it's waited this long, it can wait even longer. And insurance companies depend on that because now they're collecting interest or they're investing the funds that the employer has paid in premiums, and the insurance companies making more money. So dental insurance essentially it's a benefit to the patient that the patient has already paid for, and it's a means of defraying the cost of treatment. In many cases, the patient is better off paying for it themselves and just claiming it on their income tax, depending on what the treatment is. The objective of a dental administrative team is to comfortably assist the patient to understand and gain the most out of their benefit, because after all, they've paid for it already. And for dental office administrators or dental personnel to help the patient understand their benefits as much as possible. The facts about dental insurance is that it's a contract between the employer and the insurance carrier. It's not a contract between the insurance carrier and the dentist. And that's what patients often don't understand. So that's a key point that needs to be brought forth with the patients. The plan design is selected by the employer, not the dentist. And I know from working in dental insurance, if you provide the plan administrator or the manager of the company that you're dealing with two different plan designs, the one is more expensive than the other, the employer always selects the least expensive plan. It only makes common sense. So they're not purchasing the most expensive plan for their employees. They're actually purchasing the least expensive plan for the employees. Insurance companies do not care about your patient's individual health, and that's a really strong message that your patients need to understand, because they find that very difficult to understand. If an insurance company doesn't improve it, then it's not needed. And you've probably heard that feedback time and time again from patients. Remember, this is the patient's benefit. So your job as a dental administrator or dentist is to help your patients understand their benefit, to help them get the most out of the benefit that they've already paid for, but also for you to get paid fairly and on time for your services as well. So that's really, really important. So insurance companies do not dictate treatment, although the patients tend to think that they will tell you whether or not it's an approved treatment. But the existence of a dental insurance plan may influence your patient's decision to proceed with treatment. After all, they've already paid for this benefit. They need to, if they can get some assistance with the finances, then they need to do that. So we need to collaborate with insurance companies. This isn't not to bash insurance companies. We need to collaborate and work with them as much as we possibly can. Give them all the information that they require to make the good informed decisions. And I will tell you from experience to follow up with the insurance companies, because there are times I've seen it happen. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen it happen where I can tell from the plan design that that patient should be covered for a certain treatment, and the claim will be denied. So you may have to go back and appeal that denial. So it's a lot of work on your end, and that's one of the reasons it's better to help your patient understand their own benefit and for them to deal with their insurance companies. I will tell you a quick little story. Insurance companies, when you call them, they have two lines. And one line is press 1 if you're the subscriber to the insurance, press 2 if you're calling from a dental office. Press 2 goes to ignore. I can guarantee it. Press 1 goes to you'll get somebody right away. I'm not saying 1 or 2 are the right extensions, so don't quote me on that. But the fact is that they will deal with the subscriber to the insurance, and that's what they want to deal with. They want to deal with the subscriber. They do not want to deal with the dental office, because they know that, excuse me, you are acting on behalf of your patient. Your patients will assume that if recommended treatment is not covered by insurance, that it's not needed. And that's one of the biggest challenges of dealing with insurance companies. So the recommended method is to treat your patient and not the insurance plan. So tell them that the treatment that they need. If there's a copayment involved, work out a payment plan for them if they need a payment plan, if they have to give it to you over 1 or 2 payments, but try to work on the patient's behalf. And this is what your patients expect. They expect you to know everything about every dental insurance plan known to man or woman. And keep in mind that the doctor is the only person who can diagnose and treat the patient. So even if it's not covered by an insurance plan, then the patient still needs the treatment. So our job as dental professionals is, excuse me, to help your patients get the benefits that they need, but also get the treatment that they need. That's the most important thing. So the policies and guidelines it's really dentist's role to give the patient the available treatment options to address the particular dental care needs, regardless of the nature and extent of the dental plan. So tell them what they need, and that's the only fair way of doing it anyway. So in other words, treat the patient and not the insurance plan. According to some of our regulatory bodies here in Canada, and I'm sure they're fairly consistent with what happens in the US as well, but the dentist will regularly assist on patients' requests by supplying them the information required to enable patients to receive any benefits to which they may be entitled. And it's equally as important to preserve the sanctity of the dentist-patient relationship from third-party interference, because that's really, in many ways, in many respects, what dental insurance is. It's really a third party interfering with the care of that patient. Manual claim forms. I don't know if anybody still uses manual claim forms. From time to time, you have to. If you are dealing with a secondary insurance company, for example, if there's coordination of benefits, you may have to print a manual form. But essentially, when the patient signs the claim form, or when the claim is submitted electronically, he or she is acknowledging that the services were performed, and he or she is responsible for the fees. Now, the thing is that patients don't necessarily understand what the codes are. So they know that they're at the dentist that day. They don't necessarily know, you know, if they had a 3-surface filling or a 2-surface filling, or you know, how many units of scaling, whatever. So it's important that the patient, everything is explained to the patient, and they don't have to remember the codes, but at least you put down the proper coding for the proper billing. They're also authorizing the release of information to a third party. So the important thing is that this information, all insurance claims are being monitored by insurance companies. So every claim that goes through is being monitored. So for example, if you put the wrong tooth number down on a claim, and the insurance company may come back and say that tooth is missing, or that tooth has already been restored. And so they already know that. You know, it's kind of like Big Brother watching everything that's going on. But insurance companies can also come in, and if they think that you are doing anything that is against insurance companies, then they can actually call an audit of your practice. So they work pretty closely with regulatory bodies, certainly here in Canada, and that's something to keep in mind as well. Oops, sorry, went a little bit too far there. So next thing we're going to talk about is assignment of benefits. So when the benefit is assigned to you as the dental office, they're assigning you as a beneficiary to their benefit. So the regulatory bodies here consider that the most effective way to protect the dentist and patient relationship is to make every effort to deal directly with the patient in all matters regarding the patient's dental care. And that includes payment, regardless of the fact of whether or not the patient has a dental plan. So that's an important thing to know. The accepting assignment, essentially what it does is it interferes with the dentist-patient relationship. So remember that insurance should be, dental insurance is assistance. It assists patients to defray the cost of treatment. It's not intended to cover 100% of everything. And approval or non-approval for benefits that have the patient's already paid for can actually interfere with the dentist-patient relationship, because after all, it's the dental office that has to respond to the patient, and it's the dental office who has to answer the hard questions that the patients ask. Most private insurance companies won't reimburse the dentist anyway. So even if your office accepts assignment, the dental insurance company may say, well, that's too bad, we're paying the subscriber to the insurance, and that's who they will pay. They will pay the patient. So it's very important if you have, if you are accepting assignment, that you make sure that you collect the copayment at the time of service, and that the insurance company will even allow you to assign that claim to your office. In copayment situations, it's far more difficult to collect the balance, and you know that it's also illegal to write off copayments. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. If there is any thought that if an insurance company thinks that one dentist is writing off copayments, then they will audit the practice. And honestly, I've heard from several clients and dentists in the past who have said to me, well, you know, dentists in this area, because of the area location we're in, a lot of them are writing off the copayments and just taking what the insurance covers. And I said, and I say every time, I highly doubt that that is true. That may be certainly what the impression of the patient is, or what they're thinking, or what they're trying to ask you to write off the copayment. But I don't know of any dentist at all who is willing to risk his or her license over a copayment, a patient copayment. It just doesn't make sense. So it's very important that your administrative team collects the copayment at the time of service, explains everything to the patient, and helps the patient to gain the most from their dental benefit without becoming the plan administrator. So waiving copayments, this is Canadian, so I'm sure there's probably something similar in the US. That waiving copayments contrary to the professional misconduct regulation under the Dentistry Act of 1991. There are two exceptions: that the dentist has made reasonable attempt to collect the balance from the patient, or the dentist has written consent from the plan administrator. Written consent from the plan administrator is very, very difficult to get unless it's a funded program, like a federally funded program or provincially funded program or state funded program, like welfare, that type of thing. So other than that, the dentist has to make every attempt to collect the copayment. That's how this complicated underwriting formula has been set. And if you did write off all the copayments, then that would be considered fraudulent, actually. So the employer selects the plan design based on cost, and they usually always take the least expensive plan. The dentist does not control the level of coverage that is purchased by the employer. And something else you should be aware of is that the benefits level can change. You know, from if the companies are going through a cost crunch, you know, during a recession, for example, then the employers will look at cost-cutting measures, and they will usually always pick the dental plan. And so they'll either reduce the benefits to the patient, or they will eliminate dental altogether. So, and that can happen silently, where the employees don't even know. The employees aren't even aware of this. And this has happened time and time again, once again, when the employees are not aware. If the patient's unhappy with their level of coverage, they should speak to their employer and tell their employer they would like a better level of coverage, because remember, it's their employer who sets the plan design, purchases the plan design. So the best thing is to start by assuming that no patient in your practice has dental insurance. So treat the patient, not the dental plan. And besides trying to have a good memory, you know, trying to remember each insurer's policy number and policy holders. And by the way, patients can work for the same company and have two different policies. For example, when I worked at the university, you know, we had unionized employees, and we also had management. So they had separate plans, and that happens a lot with large companies in particular, where management have a different policy than the unionized workers do. So many plans have the potential to treat employee groups differently. And remember that no one person can possibly keep track of all of the differences. You know, I remember years ago when somebody would come in and say, oh, I'm covered by Blue Cross. Well, Blue Cross at that point had, I think, 132 plans. So, you know, and what your fee guide, if you use a fee guide, would it be? So there were a lot of things to consider. And no one person can keep track of all of this, even with the most sophisticated office management software. However, in a lot of the softwares at this time, now, if the policy level changes and you have one policy number, it will change all of the policy, everyone who's covered under that policy number in your computer system, it should change it. But it's very, very difficult to keep track of it. And keep in mind that patients change jobs. They change positions within their organization. They can go from unionized to management. Spouses change jobs, and patients change spouses. So it's almost impossible to remember everything and keep track of everything. However, having said that, your patient thinks that you do. Your patient thinks that you know everything. And they also often expect everyone in your office to know what their level of coverage is. So it's very important that you educate the patient over and over and over again if you have to. So if a patient has insurance, identify what the best treatment is, of course, for the patient. Discuss the payment options. Discuss the options with the patient, how much your insurance will assist you with. Your copayment will be this much. And we can also break that into 2 payments if that will make it easier for you. If finances are an issue, and they're usually always an issue, then discuss the fees and make payment arrangements. And I suggest doing this at the time of booking the appointment. So if you're booking major restorative treatment, I always suggest that you take a deposit, and the deposit should be approximately whatever the lab fee is going to be, at least, if not a little bit more. And take that at the time of booking, and then you have a better chance of the patient showing up for the appointment. And then, of course, you can break the payment plan down into whatever you feel is comfortable for yourself, for the office, and for the patient. And so when the predeterminations go to the insurance company, a dental consultant, who is always a dentist, will look at the x-rays. They will look at your treatment plan. Now I've heard that some insurance companies will actually ask you for the entire treatment plan, even if though you're sending in a predetermination for a crown. They want to know what the future is going to be. So, and that's just one of the latest things that that they're asking for. But keep in mind that the person who is looking at that treatment plan and the x-rays is a dentist. And he or she is probably absolutely 100% agreeing with you. And then they send the claim back denied. Why? Because they look at what the plan design is. If it's not covered under the plan design, they have to deny the claim. So that's an important thing to remember. So there's not much use in arguing with these people, because they're just looking up the plan design, which is something that you could do anyway. And it just makes it easier if you do it yourself. Consultant does not comment on whether or not the proposed treatment is good or needed, only if it's covered under the policy. That's all that they do. So if it's not covered under the policy, the claim is denied. But keep an eye on that, because I know I've caught many, many times where the claim has been denied, and yet I know for a fact that the person was covered for that. So you may have to appeal it from time to time. When the predetermination is returned, the patient knows exactly what their insurer will contribute to the proposed treatment and can make then an informed decision about the treatment options and timing. So, so that's important. But remember that the the psychologists that work with the underwriters, they deliberately will delay that approval process or the predetermination approval because of the fact that the longer it takes for the patient to really decide if they're not feeling symptoms, then the more money stays in the insurance company. And it's no longer a priority in the patient's mind. So that's why I say for treatment coordinators to follow up within 2 weeks, because you know that the insurance company is going to spend 4 weeks having the patient wait. So keep in touch with the patient in the meantime, and this also keeps it top of mind for the patient. They know that that work still needs to be done, and you can do it in a helpful mode by just saying, you know, Mrs. Smith, I know we've sent out a pre-estimate on your behalf. Is there anything else that we can do to help help facilitate the process, and try to get that the appointment booked? That's the most important thing. So when patients ask you questions about dental insurance, and they always do, be proactive and not reactive to answer the questions with really good answers. So the first question is, well, I have insurance, so why do I have a bill? So this would be an assignment office. So the response would be, although you have insurance, some procedures may not be covered. And that's when you can go through the explanation about the plan design and how it's selected by the employer. Your level of insurance coverage is determined by the policy that your employer selects. So it's the employer that makes that decision, not the dentist. Insurance plans are a great benefit to the patient. The plans are designed to defray the cost of treatment. The entire amount is not always covered. And then that's part of the shared risk formula. So there's a copayment involved. So the patient usually bears some financial responsibility for the treatment. And the reason for that is because of the fact that they want the patient to think about this. If there's an out-of-pocket expense, then you need to prioritize your purchases. You need to think about, do you really want this treatment, or, you know, does your card need getting fixed? You know, there are those considerations to take, and that's part of the shared risk formula, as I mentioned. We promise to base your treatment on your dental health needs and not your insurance policy. Although we're here to assist, we'll be pleased to help you in every way possible to gain the most you can from your benefit, because after all, you've already paid for your benefit. You have every reason to be concerned when it seems that you're not getting the dental benefits that you deserve. Our fees are consistent based on the current suggested fee guide of the current year. If you're unhappy with your level of coverage, you may wish to address this with your employer. And you can also offer some brochures or information on preventive dentistry and that type of thing. Will you bill the insurance company directly? Then this is really an assignment versus a non-assignment question. I will tell you, when I've passed dental offices and I see these signs that we bill your insurance company directly. Well, of course, every dentist bills the insurance company directly. You send the claims through EDI, or, well, I guess through EDI. So you send the claims directly to the insurance company. It's a matter of payment, not a matter of sending it into the insurance company. Anyway, the question is, you know, your dental insurance is your benefit, but we'll be happy to bill your insurance company electronically, and you'll receive your benefit within just a few days. Nowadays, patients will actually receive their benefit within a couple of hours because it's deposited directly into their bank. So there's no reason that you have to wait for your payment, and that the patient will be reimbursed almost immediately. We have several payment options available at our office, and then go through what your payment options are and how you can help your patient. Here are some reasons why you shouldn't accept assignment, or at least in my opinion, it's up to you. I will tell you from my experience with offices that I deal with, there generally is a combination of some assignment and some non-assignment, and that's normal. That's fine, because there are some patients that just you have to accept it from the insurance company. But as long as they're good payers, as long as they're paying their copayment and they pay it at the time of service, then you can make an exception for that patient. So one of the reasons is the patient thinks you control their dental benefit. And so if you prescribe care for a condition that the insurance company doesn't approve, then the patient thinks that's your fault. So you've prescribed the wrong thing, and that's not right. But again, it's psychology. That's how the insurance companies are working around this, and that's how you can work with insurance companies on your patient's behalf. If dental benefits cease at the employer level, the patient thinks it's your fault. So I had this happen just recently with a client where the dental benefits were reduced, and the patient came in to have their regular hygiene appointment and didn't realize that they only had they had 4 less scaling units than they thought they had, and so it was rejected or denied part of that claim. So copayments are also extremely difficult to collect, and they have a negative impact on your accounts receivable and cash flow. I know this from experience as well. I can tell by looking at your accounts receivable whether it's an assignment versus a non-assignment practice. And it sounds like it's counterintuitive. You would think if it was an assignment practice that the benefit would go directly to the dental office and that their accounts receivable essentially should be low, but it's quite the opposite. It's the opposite. The accounts receivable are usually higher because the insurance companies will also take their time paying the dentist, but they will pay the subscriber in a timely fashion. So that's the key, is that they will pay the subscriber directly. You cannot waive copayments. Illegal. It's illegal and unethical, and patients will try to convince you otherwise. You know, well, just do it for me. I won't tell anybody. But the fact is, it can lead you into all kinds of difficulties, and it's just not worth it. If you have normal, regular patient fees that you're charging and they're fair and ethical, then there's absolutely no reason to have to do that. So help your patients understand their benefit, but don't become their plan administrator. Don't become the employer, because you'll never win. You'll always be the bad guy or the bad gal, because patients always blame you. The other thing I'm going to talk about a little bit is don't discount your fees. Now, I run into some trouble with this sometimes, depending on what group that I'm speaking with, but I'm just going to explain my position with this. And if you do provide any type of discount, I call it a professional courtesy. I don't call it a discount, which I'm sure you probably call it a professional courtesy as well. But if you give that patient a professional courtesy, you must, on their dental claim, you must take that off first before you submit to the insurance. Because if you take it off, it can look as if you are waiving the copayment, which, as I mentioned, is illegal. So be careful not to discount your fees for 3 reasons. 1, you're not providing discount dentistry. You know, you're not doing, half price fillings or root canals this week only. Perhaps patients often think that if you can discount your fees, that you were overcharging all along. And that's probably the most important point of this entire slide, is that patients think that you're overcharging all along. So you see, you can take 20% off and it doesn't affect you. Patients also have the assumption that dentists are rich and you can handle it. You can manage on your own. I've been in more than one office where this has happened, where the patient was assigned, the office was accepting assigned claims for the patient. The patient received the check because the insurance company said, it doesn't matter, we only pay the subscriber. So they paid the subscriber to the insurance. The patient came in, had the work done. The patient received a check from their insurance company and cashed it and kept it. And that is theft. So but I've had patients who have said, well, that's too bad. I've got to put groceries on the table. I've got to pay my heat and hydro bill. So, it's a tricky situation when you're accepting assignments. It's better to let your patients deal with their own insurance company. Tonight, as part of the handouts that you'll be sent, one is a form that the patient can take to their employer or call their insurance company, and they can get a full breakdown of the of their benefits. If you want to do that with them, you have to have the patient with you. You could go into a consult area and guide them through and just ask those questions of the insurance company. And then you've got a full insurance breakdown. So I have included that form. I've also included an express checkout form, which the patient can choose fee for service or assignment of benefits, but just explain that it explains that the assignment, if they're accepting assignment, the insurance company might not allow us anyway, and you're still 100% responsible for the fees at this office. And I think there's another one that I've included as well, the predetermination process. So according to guidelines, and this is from regulatory colleges, if you discounted fee, whether or not you advertise it, you must charge the same fee for every patient. Now, where I've run into difficulty from this is I was on the east coast of Canada giving a lecture one time, and they were saying to me, oh, but we give all seniors discounts. And I said, well, that's great, but think about it from a practical perspective. So I'm just going to show you what's happening here. The average dental practices operates at 60 to 65% overhead expenses. So that's to keep your lights on, pay your staff, and pay for your dental supplies, and so on and so forth. If you collect 90% of what you build, so that means that your accounts receivable are at 10%. So if you've collected 90% at the time of service, that means you actually earn 25% of what you build. So that's 100% of what you build minus 65% overhead expenses, that's 35%, minus 10% that's outstanding on your accounts receivable. Okay, so that's literally 25%. So if you discount your fees even by 10%, that you're actually earning 15% of what you've built. So it's 25% minus 10% is 15%. So you may be asking the same question I was asked on the East Coast. What about my seniors? So they don't have insurance benefits, which is true. They have increased clinical needs, which is also true. And they will actually, what is also true is they will save money by paying for it themselves instead of having a dental plan. If they just pay and come in regularly twice a year to have their hygiene appointments and maintain their oral health, then they're going to save money in the long run, and plus they can write it off on their income tax. So it's a win-win situation with senior citizens. The golden age of dentistry, of course, is now with the aging baby boomers, and people are living longer. They value health and aesthetics, and they value prevention. They want to prevent disease. They don't want to be sick. They don't want to have poor oral health. And they're also willing to pay for what they value. And by the way, they have a lot more disposable income than you think. I was trying to get the stats for you, so I didn't put them on the slides because I thought I'm not going to state something that I can't justify or back up. But the amount of wealth in the senior community is very, very high, certainly in Canada and even higher in the US. So some of them certainly struggle, however, financially. However, they too can benefit from having their regular checkups, coming in twice a year and making sure the oral hygiene is up to date. And by the way, it affects their systemic health, which I know that all of you already know. So aging baby boomers they value prevention, but also these are great, lovely people to fill in those awkward holes in, the late morning or mid-afternoon when you've had a cancellation. Call in a senior. They would love to come in, and they've got the time on their hands. They've got the time and they've got the money. This is a patient survey that was done at the University of Toronto. The percentage of those who agree that they would be willing to pay for prevention, even if they're not covered, was over 85%. And this stat I will give you because I've got the stats here. So this was a survey done by Dr. Howard Tenenbaum. Sorry, he was head of perio at the University of Toronto. So the percentage of total surveys indicating a strong yes for willingness to pay, even if not covered by insurance, was 87.2%. Percentage of total surveys indicating just a yes for willingness to pay if not covered by insurance was graded to 5 to 6 centimeters, was 2.1%. Okay, percent of total surveys indicating a strong no for willingness to pay if not covered by insurance was 10.7%. So the majority of seniors are willing to pay for their dental services and pay out of pocket, and they fill in those nice gaps in the afternoon that are harder to fill. I was asked a question in preparing for this webinar tonight. One of the participants asked, can I get paid for teledentistry? So I did look this up, and the simple answer is yes, but the codes need to be used in conjunction with the procedure code for the service. So for example, using Teledent, the dentist can connect the patient via secure live video calls to complete a limited oral exam evaluation. The dentist can then prescribe antibiotics if needed and determine the need and urgency of the patient in the clinic, knowing the procedure needed. So for example, a fractured tooth needing a crown or filling, the dental practice will then bill a limited oral exam. So in the US, I think that's the code 0140. I believe in Canada it's 01400. Mind you, it can be looked up in the fee guide. And then synchronous teledentistry, which is 9995. So that would be in the adjunctive section of the fee guide. And depending on the insurance carrier, be reimbursed for the teledentistry delivered by the limited oral exam. So the bottom line is, yes, you can get paid for it. Yes, you can bill for it. But just the insurance company, it depends on the insurance company. They still might not cover it. However, having said that, most dental offices are up and running now. They have all of the PPE that they need. And it's always a really good idea to check and get guidance from your state board as well in the US, and certainly in Canada, our provincial regulatory bodies. Okay, so the key behind this is that teamwork is the key. Everyone needs to believe in the value of the services that you are providing. They also need to believe that they are helping the patient by helping the patient understand what their insurance is and not treating the patient only according to what their insurance will cover. Focus on the opportunities and not necessarily the constraints. And educate your patients to understand the value of the treatment. And that's really the main key to your success. Okay, that's great. I think at this point, we can open it up for questions.